networking meeting, and we have the pleasure of listening to you, Steve Lanier of American World Corporation, to start us with well, the U.S. and the East Coast. And
all right, yeah, hello to everybody. Great to be here again. And thanks, Charlotte, for letting me kind of share and tell our story today. Looking a little bit at the East Coast, of course, we work all over the US, but we're based in Washington, DC. So Charlotte kind of suggested doing a little bit of a summary about what's going on the East Coast. And I have to say, most of our clients start on the East Coast of the US. If they're new to the US, that's not always the case, but the majority of our clients will start on the US or the East Coast, or start on the East Coast. The East Coast is usually a priority for a number of different reasons, but it depends on the industry sector. But we can go to the next slide there. Just a quick overview in terms of what we've been doing. We've been in business 25 years now. I started the company 25 years ago. I say I still enjoy it. We're focused on mainly working with small, mid-sized European companies to help them develop the US. About 80% of our business comes from Europe. Not all of our business, but I'd say about, depending on the year, anywhere between 70, 80, 85% of our business comes from Europe. We do a lot of work in France, Switzerland, Italy, Germany, Spain, the UK. I've kind of put UK and Europe. I need to start separating them out now. But that's kind of our main focus. We're multi-sectorial, like most of us, but we do have some different industries that we do a lot of work in. We do a lot of work in the food area. We do a lot of work in the industrial equipment area. Different sectors of IT, but it sort of depends on that area, and different consumer good product as well. So just a quick look at the East Coast, since we're DC. It definitely has sort of the population concentration is on the East Coast. The Mid-Atlantic region, which includes New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Connecticut, New Jersey, that area, what they call the Mid-Atlantic, has about 416 people per square mile. Square mile, not square kilometer, but that's what we're looking at, compared to Alaska, which is about the least densely populated, 1.3 individuals per square mile. So if anybody wants to have some space, go to Alaska. That's the place to do it. New York, of course, is sort of the epicenter of the population, and it is the epicenter of business activity. About $1.7 trillion of economic activity in terms of GDP just in New York City. That's about 10%. The whole US economy is about 20 trillion, somewhere in that, maybe 21 at this point. So you're looking at almost 10% is just in one city, New York City. Then if you include sort of Boston and Philly, you have another $1 trillion, and those three cities together equal about the GDP of California, which is about 3 trillion just in California. So a lot of economic activity on the East Coast, a lot of population on the East Coast, it's oftentimes, as I said, kind of the area to look at to begin. And I think it's interesting to note 50% of the US population live in just 9 states, including New York and Illinois, Florida, California. There's about 50% there. So we can go to the next slide. And then when you kind of look at the industry sectors, of course, New York is known as sort of the financial hub, and rightfully so. There's a lot of activity in terms of financial activity. It's also the entertainment hub, a lot of films, of course, in New York and so on. But there's a lot of other different sector hubs across the East Coast. Boston and biotech, very large sector. Some argue it's the largest. California still has a lot of biotech. A lot of major venture capital activity for biotech as well. You've got New Jersey and pharma, the third largest active pharmaceutical ingredient. That's API, active farmers couldn't fit that all in the presentation. API, active pharmaceutical ingredient producer in the world. And that's what we find a lot of times on the East Coast. These hubs of activity are actually world leaders, not just in the US, but in the world. You've got Delaware in chemicals, a lot of, you got DuPont in Delaware. You got a lot of pharma and chemicals in New Jersey, which kind of go between New Jersey and Delaware. So a lot of different activities. Pennsylvania has a lot of manufacturing and high tech. In fact, they say between Chicago and New York, that corridor, there's about 40% of all US industrial activity. So you kind of go from Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York State. That's about 40% of all the industrial activity is in that corridor. And then you've got Washington, DC and the government, but you also have 2,000 industry associations in Washington, DC, which is actually very relevant to many of our clients, which I'll talk about in just a little bit as well. So that's kind of the quick overview about the East Coast. Definitely something for everybody in that sense. But again, kind of depends on industry sector products and what our clients are looking to do. But East Coast is not a bad place to start to look. It's rare that we do a search all over the US for our clients. We usually focus on a region to do a search. In certain projects, certain cases we will. We do acquisition searches, for example, where a European company or a non-US company wants to buy a US company. We'll do a search all over the US oftentimes for that. Even then, oftentimes we do a regional focus because they have regions where they want to be in. But that's sort of East Coast. So when we look at our services, we really do kind of three main things. Like again, many of you, we do market studies or a market check. We sort of look at the market, what's going on in terms of trends in the market, competitors, distribution structure. Often do that as a first step to kind of understand what's going on. Then we do partner searches, and then we look for partners, and then we oftentimes will do ongoing services where we follow up and continue implementing the strategy, acting as a representative office for our clients in the US. And oftentimes they do go in order, market check, partner search, and then ongoing services. And that's really about all we do. And each year we try to get better and better at doing that. But when you look at sort of the channels to market, or even kind of when we do a partner search, we're really looking at kind of four areas. We look at the possibility of going direct, which is the hardest, most difficult, the one we don't like to do, but sometimes it is the best strategy. We worked with a satellite control board producer. There are only about 5 satellite producers in the US. In that case, we went direct after the satellite producers. But it can be the right strategy in certain cases. Then you have digital marketing. We really don't do digital marketing in our company, but we have partners. But now it's always important to talk about digital marketing, to develop a digital marketing plan. Partners want to see that, clients want to see that, investors want to see that. So we have that conversation with our clients about digital marketing. What are you doing with social media? And then we talk about multipliers. Multipliers we define as industry associations, influencers, business groups. Hence, we start talking about the 2,000 industry associations in Washington, DC. And then we have more the classic channel to market, which are distributors, agents, brokers, importers, complementary manufacturers, or even acquisition. We put that in the classic partnership area. We do a lot of partner searches in that classic area, looking for partners for our clients. So we can go to the next slide, and just a little case study to kind of show how the channels can work together. We have some clients that work only with one channel when they come into the market, or we have clients that work in all 4 channels when they're coming to the market. And all 4 are valid, only one is valid. It really depends on the strategy, resources, products, the sector of each of our clients. And just a quick case study, we did a project for a UK company that produced these hospital washer units. Won't go into a lot of activity, but anyway, they washed different things in a hospital. And we did a market check as a first step. And we found out from the talking to individuals in the sector that a lot of the clients, a lot of the hospitals and clinics, even nursing homes, everybody that could use the product, very little demand because they used plastic and they just threw it out. And I said, okay, welcome to America, the land of the throwaway disposable culture. And, you know, in Europe, in Asia, they were competing on the features of their product. And we said, yeah, in the US, I think we're gonna have to take a step back, and we're gonna have to educate about why the product is needed, that you can save money. You can have better infection control than when you throw out a plastic item. You can save the environment. You have lower waste. And again, you're going to save money because you don't have to buy the plastic, and you don't have to throw out the plastic because they pay by the pound to throw out plastic in the US, or to throw out waste in the US, the hospitals. So we suggested every hospital, as we also identified from our research, has a environmental impact committee. And we said, you know, this is where we want to tell our story. If we can get your story in front of these environmental impact committees, they're going to love the product. They're going to realize throwing out everything is really a bad idea. It's going to take education to do that. How do we get in front of these environmental impact committees? Through associations. And there are hospital associations that had a committee made up of environmental impact committees, and they got together to talk about how to exchange best practices. And that's what we said, that's where we want to be. And that's a great example of kind of using, you know, just coming in with a distributor. You know, we really have to educate about their product. This is sort of an innovative product, not really used in the US. So we have to use multiple channels to come to market to really develop fully the market for the client. And that's oftentimes what we're looking at, some combination, not always, but we'll use a combination of going to market. So just a quick case study in terms of how we approach different projects and different channels to market. And so we can go to the next slide there, Charlotte. And then kind of just to wrap up, I'm asked often sort of, you know, what are the key points, in my opinion, after, you know, working 20-some years, what's different about the US? What do we really have to do? What are the challenges? How do we get in? And I say for the US market, and I think it's important for any market, but especially in the US, there's really two elements. One is tell a good story, really develop your story and Americanize your story for the US market. Like the example of the hospital washer unit. Their story that they were using in Europe didn't translate well to the US. They had to really revise their story. Rather than talking about the features of the product, they had to come within a story about how they're going to save money, how you're going to reduce infections, and how you're going to save the environment by using their product. So we really had to develop a different story for the US market. And we say, you know, you're going to have a different story in different markets, in China, the US, and Germany. Your story is going to be different. And you're even different sectors. Your story might be different for the hospital sector than for the retirement or clinics. So your story can change. So you really have to develop a good story and be able to tell your story in 1 minute. That's what we say, you know, Americans, we have a very low attention span. I say it's like working with little children. They can wander away very quickly. So we say, tell a good story, tell it in a minute. And if you can do that, you can really open a lot of doors with potential partners, clients, investors. Story is very important. And the second key is follow up, follow up, follow up. I say, you know, in the US, follow up is very different. After you have a meeting or to set up a meeting or to get into the market, you really have to continue following up. We follow up for months. We follow up 5, 10 times. We call, we email. And when we get somebody on the phone, they say, you have good follow-up. You're a good business person. I say in Europe, you contact somebody 10 times, you keep calling, they're going to call the police. And that's just, it's a different culture. It's a different culture in Europe, a different culture in many parts of the world compared to the US. And so we really have to do aggressive follow-up. It's not impolite, it's expected. It shows you're serious. And a lot of our clients, that's one of the cultural differences that oftentimes they have a hard time implementing because it seems so impolite. But we say, keep pushing. It's a very competitive market in the US. You really have to push to get in the market. But if you push, you have a good story, you do good research, the US market is very feasible. It's a very open market, even though it's very competitive. It's not an easy market, but it is open if you really develop a systematic plan to get into the market. So that's it. That's my story. Appreciate the opportunity to kind of present what we're doing. Very excited to be part of the group here. And yeah, please use this as a resource for the US. If anybody would like to brainstorm, talk about activities just based on our experience. Always happy to do that. So please use this as a resource, as I will do for you as well. And again, very pleased to be part of the group. And thanks so much for letting me present today.